All right. Maybe. Yes, I'd like to record it to the cloud. All right. Very good. So, first of all, welcome everybody. Um, Rabbi Glasser and I welcome you and hope that we will enhance what Rabbi Miller presented for his Haggadah, his lessons on Haggadah. And I will ask Rabbi to take it over.
So, yes, welcome. This is really kind of an experiment because, of course, there's never been a second year of Zoom Passover before. So we figured, contrary to last year where everyone was kind of scrambling a little bit, this year there's a ton of resources, along with, of course, everything else that's out there due to YouTube and other places. Our movement and other groups have just been putting out a lot of stuff. So part of this is really going to be us kind of talking through some bigger questions about what does a Seder mean on Zoom for the second year in a row? Thinking about kind of what we want our Seders to feel like and look like, how to engage in different ways. Last year, Zoom was kind of a last ditch resort, and this year, I think all of us are a little more familiar. So I'm thinking about some ways to use Zoom to make Passover more Passover like. We do have a bit of a PowerPoint as well as some resources, but really we're also open to kind of your questions. And this can really also be a discussion of what are some of the things we've been thinking about as we try to plan our Seder, or maybe we haven't yet because Passover's at the end of March and we're not necessarily ready, which is also okay. So it's really just a space for us to share, but feel free to interrupt at any time. Myra's still raising her hand, but you can be like Myra and raise your hand if you have a question, or put it in the chat, uh, or just unmute
I don't,
yourself.
Rabbi, I don't understand since
It's okay.
it's on my chair. It's
You're just
nowhere near my hands.
you're
Okay.
just
So, yeah.
no,
So
but
there's a reaction button at the bottom of the screen. You'll see it has a little smiley face. And maybe what you did was pressed one of the emojis
yeah.
unknowingly.
Yeah, it's just a little button. That's all good. So feel free to do that, type in the chat, or just unmute yourself and say, I have a question. And we'll go through this together and think about kind of both the big picture and our overall intentions, but also some specific resources we can use to make them happen. And we'll send you away with some links that at least were some of my favorites of the many, many links out there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to share a PowerPoint by another rabbi because why reinvent the wheel when people have been working on this? And so this is, and he uses the word Seder here, which I love, a Zoom Seder. This is Rabbi Dan Moskowitz. Next year, still here. Very funny, because we all thought we would be saying next year around our tables like we're used to, and that's not the case. So,
Can you
part,
expand that
um,
full screen? Or
I
I guess not.
do not know. Let me try opening it in a new window and see if it comes in any different.
Okay.
Is that any better?
When it
Oh,
finishes loading, maybe. There we
I can
go.
see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Zader 5782 next year is still here. He has quite a way with words. So one of the ideas is about thinking, this was going to happen. And I love the way he puts it. Redemption, like so many things, has been delayed. So we're hitting our pandemic walls. It's been a year. We did this last year. This is the first Jewish holiday that we're repeating again. It is, it's tedious and we're tired of this. And that has happened other times in our history, unfortunately, like it or not. So it's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to feel like you don't know what you're doing, and that's why we're here to hopefully help assist. So he points us to kind of these questions of why a Seder. The Seder is, one of the most observed Jewish rituals, if not the most observed Jewish ritual of our tradition. And even if we can't celebrate the way that we're used to, he suggests, some of these themes are ways that we can still connect, even though we're not together. So it's in the Torah, but also we want to bring generations together. We want to retell our story, celebrate our freedom, eat, drink, and be merry. And yes, it's harder to do that on Zoom, but hopefully, thinking about some of these ideas. I know that Seders are also so unique from family to family. So it's fun to think about, over your Seders, what of these themes have you highlighted? What's been emphasized? And how can you continue to work with those themes as we move forward? I'll send this PowerPoint. So if you're not getting everything, I don't want to, belabor any points, but I'm happy to email this out to anyone. So reach out to me if you would like it. So these to me are kind of the big questions. What do we want our Seder to accomplish, and what do we want participants to feel? Thinking about that, of course, in a different context than we're used to. So this is kind of a window into our personal Seder. And, how do you usually feel with your family? What kind of atmosphere does the Seder set? And what do you want people to be coming away with?
Right, and bear in mind that a Seder can be for a young family, an older family, a family of 100 this year. The same reason why we can reach out to many people that we haven't seen in years. You could have 100 people at your Seder. You could never have that many people in your home, but you can reach out as far as your Zoom will reach. So.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I loved last year was that I could share this holiday with people who I hadn't shared it with ever or in years. I got to have some of my California cousins around the table. I hadn't celebrated Passover with them since I was 7 or 8. And so Cantor Stanton's absolutely right. We can kind of accomplish our goals on a wider level through technology. So that is an opportunity in a year that feels so devoid of them. Great. So we have kind of the big dream questions, and then we have the practical questions of, okay, what are we actually doing? And again, I can send this out. We're going to kind of move through it relatively quickly. But what are we doing? Are we including people who wouldn't otherwise have a Seder to go to? Are we thinking about kind of how we gather Jewishly? Are we thinking about connecting people who maybe don't celebrate any other holidays besides Passover? And I really love this fourth bullet point. Because it's true. This year we're celebrating, we're mourning, reflecting, learning, and imagining. We do that every year, but I think everything feels a little bit more poignant this year, in my opinion, and I'm sure many of you would agree. So, what kind of emotions do we want to make space for? Yes, it's a festive holiday, but also, it's also a reminder that there's still bitterness in our lives in so many ways, just like our ancestors. So, how do we create space for all of that? We can be happy. It's a beautiful spring holiday. We're with our family, but we can also kind of reflect on what's been and our hopes for the future.
We could also, as one of the most important things to do, is invite the stranger in. You can safely invite somebody that you would never have thought to invite before in a safe way, to let them peer into the Jewish world. If you have some friends that are not Jewish, and they're suffering at home like everybody else, and maybe you'd like to invite somebody that way through Zoom, so that they can see what goes on and celebrate with you.
Absolutely. Passover is the holiday of welcoming, so we do have tools to do that this year. Are we good so far? Anyone want to jump in with any questions, comments, or thoughts about your own Seder? We're still, again, starting with kind of the big stuff. But I don't know, has anyone been kind of thinking over some of these issues and how you're
Well,
going to address
I,
them?
I I have that two people raise their hands.
Oh, I can't even see. Okay.
Yeah. Uh, so somebody want to just jump in?
Well, you said two. I don't want to be rude, but sure. Um, this is Andrew. Sorry. I guess last year we didn't particularly try to make it broader or larger because it actually became smaller and it was adults only that were able to attend. And it was really great. We loved it. We sat around a coffee table and we had an adult Seder. It also felt somewhat curtailed because there's a lot of family that wasn't connected. I had not even thought about, because I'm not professionally using Zoom or connecting in that way. So I see the obvious. I see obvious questions. If I was to use Zoom to connect multiple sites to perform a Seder, are there any resources that you can point me to that'll easily kind of get me to a Seder? I mean, a Haggadah? that can
Yes,
be
we're going to go over that later. Yeah.
We'll
Oh,
get
okay.
there. Yes, yes,
Um,
yes. The PowerPoint kind of goes from big picture to, more zoomed in picture. So we're going to talk
Okay.
about specifics shortly. But no, that's a really good question because we're also all really tired of staring at a screen. So why would a Seder be different from, just sitting and listening or watching? That's a really important question. How do we
Okay.
make it
Well,
engaging?
maybe those of you that are used to conducting large organizations, large sessions on Zoom can kind of then also now or later in the session or another way, point me to some advice on how to deal with multiple sites all connecting through video link up on a religious service, because I'm not sure that I would do it very well.
You mean like different people tuning into Zoom?
Well, in theory, I mean, you've still got a leader to the service, right? The Seder has a leader.
Yep.
If that's going to be me, I'm not sure how I do that across.
Oh, Andrew, this is Amy. Facetiously, I'd say you better make sure you know where the mute all button is, right?
Okay.
So
Okay. And how do you hide the
That's right.
comment again?
Okay, so there are some suggestions both later on in this and in some of the resources about like the specific parts of the Seder. So here's
Okay.
how to replicate this in an interactive way online. So yes, will definitely get there. I would definitely say, if you're inviting people in, just make sure, everyone has the same Zoom link. If you're, people can share screens and things like that. But we will talk about Haggadot and things as well. So important question, planning on getting to that in a little bit.
Sure. Thank you.
No, of course. Was there another hand up, or was that still Myra?
That's still
I was
Myra.
just going to say to Andrew that you have to know how to speak the language. Zoomish. Zoomish.
Okay. Zoomish.
Zoomish is the
I
language.
don't. I'll need a translator, I think.
Oh,
By the end of this hour, you'll be able to speak it. I
Okay.
have
Good.
confidence
Oh
in the
goodness.
rabbi and the
Yes.
cantor.
I always wanted
There
to be
you go.
bilingual. This is good. Thank you.
All right. So we will move on. We're going to go from the general to the specific, like I said. So then here's the other piece of this, which is how do we want people to feel? And again, some of these are themes that we feel every Passover, which are accentuated this year, and some of them are more specific to the COVID times. So we can help people feel held and cared for when they have so much to do in isolation. It's a great way of connecting and of empowering people to be a part of something when everyone feels cut off from each other. We can help people feel inspired, uplifted, and changed. This is, of course, directed more to a synagogue audience, hence the references to synagogues. So, take that with a grain of salt. At our synagogue, we don't do a Seder, but we will have a social justice Seder, so you could definitely come to that. And something familiar and comforting. I think, dipping that parsley in salt water is going to be a comfort this year. I know some people like that. I don't personally, but even undertaking the rituals that are bitter physically will feel nurturing to us emotionally because they're familiar. And despite everything, a year later, we're still coming together around that Seder table. And I think that can't be underestimated. I think for me, I'm planning to do a special Shehachianu of thanks for being part of a Seder, really the first, beginning that second cycle of pandemic holidays. But again, just something, if you're the one planning the Seder, to think about the goals on a number of levels, practically and emotionally and spiritually. Okay, so this person said he showed a picture of high holiday worship, and we're getting to another point here, which is that as I mentioned earlier, Seder is not high holidays. It's not something that we were watching from home and a little bit isolated. Technology coming through on a small screen. It's not as frontal. It's an interactive medium. So this is now where we'll get into kind of some of the more specifics about how to use Zoom in your Seder. But I love what he writes here too. It's not a screen, it's a window. So how do you make this Brady Bunch squares? We've all been staring at these so much more than we're used to. We do everything through these tiny squares on a screen. How is Passover different? Passover is us living and retelling this story that has been told for generations. So how do we keep that element of being active and engaged and involved and communal, unlike the high holidays where, hopefully you were praying and involved, but it was still a screen. So how do we let this be a way for us to connect and evoke the traditional rituals of the Seder, even though we're not together. And I think for me, that's the biggest difference between last year and this year. Last year, we just wanted to have something. We wanted to make sure we got our Seder. We were all kind of in a very frenzied state of mind. This year, we have the resources to make this that window and not just a screen. So for me, that's what I'm thinking about as I think about my Seders this year. So here are some of Rabbi Moskowitz's ideas, and he's going to go through this. So if it looks a little general to you, in the future slides, we will talk about what these actually mean. So he says, here are some tools. So here, for Andrew's question, here are some Zoom tools. There's a tool of breakout rooms, which I hear and I see on this PowerPoint later. Apparently now there's a way for people to choose their own breakout rooms, which is huge and new. So you can kind of make a breakout rooms, choose your own adventure. You can make it a schmooze time with different family members. You can make it, each breakout room is contemplating one of the 4 questions. You can, you could do however interactive you usually make your Seder. I know my Seder, we usually have a theme and we have conversation prompts. You could use breakout rooms for that.
Right. Also, with breakout rooms, bear in mind that there's 2 choices. You could either mix it up and let it randomly place you in a room, or if you want to do a little homework in advance, you could set up the breakout rooms where you specifically put all the kids in one, all the adults in another. Maybe separate the generations or separate the families for moments during the Seder, where you can put people very in specific places.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to be creative with this. If if you're trying to think about this and plan this after the Zoom is over and something comes to you, you can always reach out to any of us at the temple and we can talk you through the technology if you're not sure how to set that up, or if you want to brainstorm an idea or talk through something. This will be an ongoing process until Passover, so feel free.
Correct.
If you're for these bullets or for anything you're thinking about, we can kind of help you connect the technology with your activity, if you would like that. Another thing he really stresses, which I love, and he's going to talk about later, and I know Cantor Stanton has some thoughts on this too, is use a printed Haggadah. I know last year, many of us were kind of screen sharing and trying to read the same Haggadah. And something that Rabbi Moskowitz invites us to do, and that Cantor Stanton and I talked about as we were preparing for tonight, is allow everyone to use whatever Haggadah they have, because that sensation of holding a Haggadah in your hands and seeing the pages with the wine stains and the rips and the food crumbs, that's really a quintessential part of Passover. And so all Haggadahs have the same parts. So there's so many different ways to do that. You could assign parts and say, well, my siblings are doing the 4 questions and my cousins are doing the 4 sons. You can, break it down that way. Or you could just have everyone go around and read, and, whatever they read is whatever they read. There's, again, a lot of different ways to do that. But I love that idea of leaning into the fact that everyone around your Zoom screen might have a different Haggadah, and let's roll with it.
Right. I have a Haggadah by, I think it's Saul Raskin or Riskin. It was from the 40s, and it was my great-grandfather's, who wrote in that my mother, who was the youngest and at 5 years old at that point, should do the Fir Kashas, and he wrote it in the, so he was a man ahead of his time. So my mother did the 4 questions, and it's great to see that in a Haggadah from the 40s,
Right.
So
that's a really, really important part of your Seder that you do not have to get rid of just because everything else is on Zoom. I think there's something so special about those Haggadot and us being that next voice of generation. I know my dad has a Haggadah that he has post-its in it from every year of who's reading what and when and the recipes he used. And, those things are very, they're significant to us. So you don't have to give that up just so everyone's on a screen. Okay, so another tool on Zoom, which if you don't know how to use it, we can talk you through it, is polls. So you could ask a question. You could take a little survey, about what's going on in the
Regarding the Haggadah, I thought you could see my hand, but I guess no one called on me.
Oh, Claire?
Last year we had a very successful Seder in that we used a Seder that's available online.
Oh,
No, it's Claire Sinai. And Irva's getting it right now.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm busy right now. What
I
are you
think
calling about?
Cantor, would you mind just muting?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
We
hold on one
use
second.
this Seder, this,
We use a 30-minute Haggadah.
we added to that, and everyone could get it online so that everybody in my Seder was able to see the same place that we were at.
Mhm.
It's available online. It's not a complete Seder, so we've added things to it as we went along, but it was basics and everybody had the same Haggadah. It was terrific. We used it last year. And
Thank you.
I assume it's still on the net. We made a copy, but everybody else was using their various equipment to read the Haggadah. It's online.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many ways to connect through the Haggadah. Right. So if you would rather everyone read from the same one, you can find some like those. I've had one sent to me last year that was a 10-minute Haggadah, so we kind of use that as a base and then added on our own stuff.
It's 30 minutes.
Right. Still
Well-
relatively short, all things considered.
Right.
And this is online, as I said.
Right. There's a lot of resources online. And again, Rabbi Glasser talked about using polls, for those of you who are a little bit more experienced online. And you can use games with that, where, you have people voting for, which is the better matzo ball, the sinker or the floater, or, down to, whose chicken soup is the best. And, and anyway, moving on to the Tactile Seder, and I'm going to interject here because it's one of my most fun parts of the Seder, is creating, something for the 10 plagues and, for the kids to get kids involved, really thinking out how you want to present the 10 plagues. You can use everything from bubble plastic, the bubble foam that you cover packages with, for boils, and you can use styrofoam balls for hail, and the slaying of the firstborn can be a little doll strapped to a snow sled. Just something fun to. And eyeglass, what is it? Sunglasses for the darkness and whatever. You could do something like that. Also, there are other things, when we come up to the frog songs, getting tons of little frogs in some way, shape, or form, either on paper or felt or something, and make kits for the kids that are going to be there and mail them to them. Mail them to them a week in advance so that they have them in their homes, and everybody can do something to bring whatever the experience is by the person hosting into their families. Again, it takes planning, and we don't have a lot of time, but we do have some time. And if you want to, but set us a deadline that that whatever you're going to send to people, they'll be able to get it by the holiday.
Or you could just have them go on a scavenger hunt in their homes and say, bring a pair of sunglasses, some cotton balls,
right,
and just have not even tell them what you're using it for, but say, everyone have this Seder kit in front of you, which is really just a bunch of household items that you'll use creatively throughout the service.
Correct.
So that could be a really fun way of kind of surprising people of not knowing what they're going to do and making it interactive. Everyone can throw cotton balls at their screen during the plagues or something like that. But there are ways to incorporate those items. If you have a family tradition, think creatively about how you can still do it all together. And Claire. Yeah, go ahead.
Encourage your participants to have a Seder plate, so that we noticed last year, those families those people that had a Seder plate had a much better time.
More participants.
More participation than those that didn't, even though we were all the same people that we always had. Those that, so I encouraging them this year that they should make their own Seder plate.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Passover is ultimately a holiday where you touch and taste and smell, as he wrote the word tactile. So I agree with that. Encouraging people to have objects in front of them, or say, if you're not going to go out and buy a shank bone, here's a substitute. The sky's our limit here. We can be as creative as we would like to or need to be. You could even, make games out of it and say, bring something bitter to your table and see what people bring. Or a picture of something bitter. So there's so many ways to kind of interact over the themes of the holidays while adding an extra level of creativity and not sacrificing what Passover is known for in that way.
Right, and people might surprise you, and it could be a very funny thing. If I want to bring something bitter, I'll bring a picture of somebody who's like really frustrated and bitter, and have everybody, give everybody a laugh or something, or a bottle of Angostura bitters, or something that would be surprising.
Exactly. And it's a really nice way to get to know about people too, if there are people in your Seder who don't necessarily know each other, to say, how do you define bitterness? What did everyone bring? Or, sweetness, or, what is slavery to you, and talk about contemporary slavery. Everyone bring an example to talk about. There's so many ways to kind of involve people, and even if they don't have all the traditional items, to be able to have those interactive experiences. Because Claire, you're right. The more people can kind of have in front of them and experience, the more engaging it will be, for sure. And I think that hits on his last 2 points here too, which is less is best, and it's the journey. So let yourself have fun planning it, and know that, simple objects can really be important and fun and still get your meaning across. Don't put extra pressure on yourself to make it the same as it always has been, or better than it's always been. Just make it creative. It's the COVID year. So, enjoy yourself. Have fun planning. It could be really fun to think about what tactile objects people are going to bring and share.
Right, and you know what? You might want to take something like your favorite Seder plate, or a favorite Kiddush cup when you're doing Kiddush, for the 4 cups of wine. You might want to take a picture of those very special things that you have, and have a little show and tell, and upload a picture for something. So, again, creativity here is the master.
Absolutely. Okay. If there are not any hands, and I can't see, so if you have something to say, just unmute and feel free to share. But it looks like...
I think everybody's good.
Okay, fantastic. So, all right, we will continue. So this is more details about his bullet points. So for him, you could use breakout rooms in a number of different ways. You can make someone a breakout room captain. You could have themes based on parts of the Seder or other things that you're thinking about. You could choose your own breakout room so you can let people float around. And you can also, I don't know if people know about this feature of Zoom, but if you only want people in breakout rooms for 2 minutes at a time and then they switch, you can set a timer for the whole Zoom room so that they can see how much time they have left. And then, when there are 10 seconds left, they'll know to go to the next room. So we can use this technology. The technology has been developing alongside of us during the pandemic. And so there are so many different ways to kind of use Zoom and still make things interactive.
And experiment with it. Get a couple of friends together on Zoom and experiment with the breakout room, and put one person in each room, or maybe 2 people in a room. And that way you can try it out beforehand so that you feel more comfortable the day of.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is going to be some more elaborations. I don't know how many people know this, but our movement has a new Haggadah this year. It's called Mishkan HaSeder, the title might sound familiar from our High Holiday prayer books and our Shabbat prayer book. There is a new Haggadah. I have ordered my copy. It's on the way. And you could also encourage your guests to buy the new Haggadah. It's part of our movement. I hear that there is beautiful poetry and illustrations in it. It's edited by Rabbi Hera Person, who's the head of the Central Conference of American Rabbis and a great scholar, and she's a teacher who's been around a long time. So you could also encourage people, this Haggadah is great. Let's read all together. Because as you know, I'm sharing my screen now, and I can only see a few people on my screen, and it does feel less intimate. I'd rather be able to kind of look at something and see everyone on the screen. So if you kind of say, let's all buy this Haggadah, Claire was talking about it. You can buy it or download it, look at it on another screen. It'll still be intimate because everyone will be reading together and you'll be able to see everyone's faces. So that's also okay to be creative with as well, not have to broadcast things here like I am and I can only see 3 people.
Right. Rabbi Glasser, are you able to go full screen on your presentation so we don't see the pages on the side?
I'm not sure.
It's on the 3 lines off to the other side. It might have a no.
That's full screen.
That is full screen. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Well, it's
Thank you.
mostly full screen.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
So here, this is an elaboration on polls. You can create questions of any kind. You could do a choose your own adventure. You could do a vote, as Cantor Stanton said earlier. You could do a deep question. I think, one of the things I love about Passover is it gives us permission to talk about these deep themes. So if you want to go into the theology of God killing the firstborn, if you want to talk about modern day slavery, if you want to talk about anything specific at your Seder, as I mentioned, I always grew up with a theme in my Seder. So this would be a great way to kind of have a poll and have people write in their comments. And that also, you can have a record of what you talked about, which could be interesting to print out and put in your Haggadah for next year. Or you could do, there's a ton of creative Passover resources like Passover Family Feud, Passover Jeopardy. We were talking about Jeopardy before. There's a lot of ways to use the polls to have fun or to do something a little bit deeper.
That's not Jeopardy. That's Juperdy.
However you label it. Yeah, absolutely. So part of it is about using the tools on Zoom, and part of it is about, what content you want to get across using the technology. Okay. So again, this idea of being low tech, this is aimed at synagogues, so don't read too much into that. But you can, if you have friends who live close or you want to take a drive or get out of your house, you could go deliver kits. Everyone loves getting a little something at their front door. But you could also think about what your people need. If there's a family tradition that you really missed this year, maybe there's a way to incorporate it into your Seder somehow. If there's something that, you didn't do last Passover that you missed, maybe there's a creative way to do it now that we have some more time to prep with Zoom. So just, think about it's not necessarily about trying to use fancy technology, but again, it's about kind of that content and the tradition and the ritual using technology as a tool. Is that a question?
Yeah, no, I'm going to tell you something again. I have 2 granddaughters that are in college, and from what they think, they're not sure, but either Hillel in one case and the other one, Chabad, is making kits that they can take, bring back to their room. So maybe, whatever that they're not certain yet, but that's what
great. And that's, Passover is that interactive holiday. So you can, I'm sure, if you Google like easy low tech Passover kits, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff out there. So,
right.
It depends what you're looking for and what you want to evoke in your Seder.
What I was referring there to was the they think that there'll be dinner that they can bring home from, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, well, any way we can stay connected and, participate in Passover, that's all we need to do. Okay, so, and again, less is best. So we all know we've been on those Zooms that are so long and we're so exhausted. And I love this first bullet point here. But, think about that too, right? This is not necessarily the year to pull out all the stops or try everything that you've been thinking about or do 10 creative ideas. Pick 1 or 2 things, streamline it. I don't think I have to say more. I think we all get it. We all have a little bit of Zoom.
We don't want the B'nai Brak experience this year.
No all-nighters, yeah. Absolutely. So, and as we wrap up, this is for his specific synagogue, but that's what he really says. Like, we can definitely share best practices now or think about any specific questions you all have. And I think maybe Cantor Was there music you wanted to share or no?
Yeah, I mean, I can you put up that last slide again, just for a second? Yeah, I want to talk about, keeping the kids engaged, because the kids at times are, they're going to go away from the table under a normal circumstance. Zoom and YouTube, they have a way of creating playlists. And you can create playlist. You can take it off now, and maybe what I can do is share my screen, and they can create playlists on YouTube, where, let me share the sound here, where you can either have something like, crossing over a musical Haggadah, or you have something, if you want to have a theme, to some of your songs. There's all kinds of funny songs out there.
On the seventh day of Passover.
Let me see. Let me come up with one or two that might be fun here. For the kids, let me know if you can hear this.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Those are for your infants, or for younger children. Then you have, the frog song, where we can do frogs here, frogs there.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Miss Nina Weekly Video Show. I'm Miss Nina from mymissnina.com, where you'll find entertainment for young children and their families. It's for us.
Okay, let's stop talking.
And are you ready for this silliness? This morning when Pharaoh woke in his bed, there were frogs in his bed and frogs on his head.
Okay, so we can have something like that. If that's what they're into, and you just want something that they can do to occupy them, or you can do, the Lion King edition. And let me get that back on here. Okay, and really, carefully pre-screen your various choices, and you can create a list. All right, here's one of my favorites. Okay, so that goes on, and that's the Maccabeats and 613, and there's a whole bunch of them, but there's some really fun songs. There's others that are just, whatever your group would want. Some of you might want to create a playlist just to have in the background, on a very low background while things are going, to keep some kind of continuity. So there's a lot to explore. If you've never made a YouTube playlist, you go to the side, look up the directions, but it's on the side. And then once you've made it, you can just either click it and go through one by one, and start and stop them whenever you want, or you can just keep it going, for if you want to hand it off to your kids to have something to do,
Yeah. So at this point, I think I'm happy to share. I was going to put some resources in the chat with different links, but if anyone has kind of questions or ideas you're mulling over and you want to talk through, let's do that. I see Frankie and Mark.
Yeah, I have a question. Assuming we wanted to do a theme about the 11th plague, how would you design that?
So,
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I mean, I think there's tons of resources. I think I'm gonna send put in the chat, and the temple's also gonna send out all of the URJ's resources for this year, which includes tons of materials about that. Another website I would recommend looking at is, I'm gonna put it in the chat, Ritual Well. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but they have a lot of writers who are writing contemporary rituals to explore. So I'll put it in the chat. But you can also always email Cantor or I, in the coming days to clarify if you forget something or if, you realize you want to use something. But they have all kinds of contemporary people providing not only, prayers, but also rituals that you can do at your table. And I'm also going to put another link in the chat, which I was going to send, which is this group called Bayit, who does a lot of contemporary liturgy. So let me just find that. And those are all ways to kind of engage in that. I think it also kind of, as Cantor Stanton was saying, it depends who your group is. I think you can give everyone kind of a prompt or a question beforehand to have them maybe write 2 minutes on coping with the 11th plague this year, what their experience was like. Or you can, do discussions, or that could be a way to use maybe, the question feature or the poll feature to kind of have everyone reflect on that a little bit. So I would say, you could be targeted and specific, or you can send out a prompt, or you can check out those rituals I put in, the links I put in the chat, which will probably have other rituals that people have written.
Right, and if you're somebody who really likes to play it up, you can do something like, I'll just share screen for a second, for a quick second, I should say, and you can buy the 11th plague and just have it, the book edition, or maybe the Kindle edition, and just sort of pop it up on your screen, for an idea of, the 11th plague, and then go into a discussion from there. I wouldn't necessarily use the book, but for the cover itself, it would be fun.
I'm going to ask.
Yeah, and I think too, it is an opportunity to reflect. I always, one of the reasons I love Passover is because we're supposed to tap into those emotions of the slave. So this idea of, crossing from slavery, from a narrow place into an open one, and think about, that journey. What is our journey to redemption this year? How are we moving from one place to another? How are we still stuck? I mean, there's so many ways to kind of take the theme of Passover and apply it to COVID. Of course, it being a plague is definitely a very prominent one. But thinking about, some people are vaccinated and some are not. And does that make us, a redeemed people, or does it not? And, depending on how serious and intense you want to get. And I think also, maybe an extra drop of that wine, the drops of wine are kind of to remove some of our sweetness. And so thinking about what that means. Any or all of the above. And I see Mark wrote that the Prince of Egypt is available. Also highly recommends.
Right.
Really watching.
Claire.
I have a question. Maybe you can help me. I'll tell you what we did last year about the afikomen. The youngest person at my youngest grandchild was 19 last year. Now she's 20. But finding the afikomen in my house was always a big thing. And how was I going to do that? So I hid it. And then I said I would offer a prize to whoever guessed where I put it. All the people that were attending were very familiar with my house. And it started coming in, and everybody had a great, wonderful time. And so everybody won, and it cost me a lot of money.
There you go.
Everyone a gift. I would like to do something different, but I can't figure out what I'm going to do this year. And so do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I would definitely either do something similar to that if you want it located in one household. What I would also suggest is, as a different way of doing it, is each household that zooms in with a family, for the head of the household to hide an afikomen well before the service, so that all the kids in each household get to scramble. It's much. It's. Okay, so all right, so then you have to cater it to what you have in your Zoom.
So maybe you had some wonderful suggestions.
There's I'm sure you could go online and find. I was thinking about this too. Something like an I Spy game. Like there are different games you can customize. So like I Spy the Matzah, and have people try to find something in the picture, or do some kind of puzzle. Do like a maze with the afikoman in the middle, and someone can finish the maze. This is our year to really think way outside of the box. So you could take any game you like and make it into Find the afikoman. You know, an afikoman tracker, like a Find My Phone. It depends, what you want to do. But Claire, I thought that idea was great. It depends how generous you want to be, obviously. But
Cost me a fortune. They were all winners, and one of the big grown-ups got involved too. I got him
right. I mean, I think you're hitting on that really important piece, which is, every Seder is different and has a different group. So, you're trying to cater to whoever's there. Some Seders are just adults and you can have different kinds of conversations. Sometimes, they're kids and you can, plan the whole service around them. So it really depends. Mark, I see. What's an idea for an afikoman prize?
An afikoman prize. You could have. Well, again, it depends on who your audience is. You have to know the people that you're having at your Seder. You could have anything from, I don't know, anything from a giant stuffed frog to, for an adult, maybe have something more serious. This is where you should. I can give ideas. We could sort of brainstorm some kind of ideas, but the truth is this is your time to be creative. This is your time to figure something out. I'd be happy to go one by one and brainstorm with you if you're having trouble doing it yourself. But let's talk about what your individual Seder is going to look like, and maybe we can come up with something. So I'd be very happy to be on the phone, and try to figure some of these out.
Or you could send everyone $3.99 for the Prince of Egypt.
That's right.
I think that's a good afikoman prize.
Right.
Or sing for them.
Or the book, The 11th Plague. There you go. Right. Or send some music. Yeah, send a couple of CDs. Have a box of, kosher Pesach chocolates or something, or, be creative about it. It doesn't have to be expensive. If your college age grandchild, wins and they demand college tuition, well, that's a discussion.
I'm
sorry?
Winners. You have to make sure that they're all winners at the end.
That's right. That's right. That's
Any
right.
other questions? So I'm also going to put in the chat the URJs, as I mentioned, a huge amount of resources that the URJ compiled and put together that are, of course, with our reform lens. So I just pasted that link in the chat. The temple is going to be sending out a Passover email that will have all of this and more, and some fun videos in the next week or so, probably by the end of the week. So that will include probably a recording of this, as well as the URJ's resources and some other resources that our professional staff has compiled to share.
Yeah,
There's just so much out there.
Yeah, by the way, the reason why we're putting these in the chat box, and people put these strings of letters and whatever for links, and if you don't know how, if you're not going to write them down, obviously you won't. Make sure you print screen, a copy of the screen so you can see it.
Yeah, you could also just click on any of the blue writing and it'll open in a new window, and that way you'll have it
while this box is still open.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But again, if you wanted to grab something and you missed it, feel free to be in touch with us and we can send it.
Correct. As a matter of fact, why don't you send an email to either me or Rabbi Glasser and just put down links, links for Passover,
Tantra will send you his favorite tunes, and
correct.
I'll send you the rituals and the liturgy and the articles. But there's a ton, and if you go on reformjudaism.org, which is kind of our host website, they have a ton of stuff, and you can click through by age group or, by young families or by adults. There's really just, a whole lot. So hopefully this is helpful, at least in terms of narrowing it down a little bit and directing you towards some good places to go. But really also, if you Google anything, it will probably be there. Eric, do you have a question?
Yeah, are you going to email us these links?
So if you want it, definitely just reach out to us and email us because we don't have we'll have a list of who's here, but they're in the chat for now. And if you want it, feel free to reach out.
Okay.
I'm gonna screen share the Reform Movement's page on Passover and just give you an idea of what's here. So if you go on, you're going to see something like this, reformjudaism.org. It'll give you some things and the history, blessings, what to expect at a Seder, customs and rituals, and a checklist. And then here, they'll give you a little learning, but there's a resource guide, there's recipes, there's videos, and then, here's some of the things that we've talked about, but if you have other questions, they have a plethora of information and Passover greetings and relating to Passover questions. It's really a wonderful website. Again, it's urj.org and just put urj. I'm sorry?
reformjudaism.org.
Or I'm sorry, reformjudaism.org. That's what I meant. Reformjudaism.org. Jewish holidays and Passover, but you can go to the website and it's very easy to use the site to go through. So here I'm going to type in, I'm going to press how about recipes? I don't know what you would need, or here, make your online Seder lively, engaging, and it's going to give you right away how-tos and walk you through step by step on some of the things. How to choose a Haggadah, setting in the atmosphere, again, Passover playlists, which is what we talked about before, even virtual backgrounds. For those of you who haven't played with virtual backgrounds, I'm going to stop share. We did this for Purim, where all of a sudden you saw some of us and we were playing around with our screen shares and all kinds of things. So choose a virtual background. Let's see, what did I have? I was on the, doing something like this, or I was in the king's throne, or, out in the marketplace. Maybe you can pick the divided crossing of the Red Sea with Moses on the other side and Miriam, playing her timbrel. You can do all kinds of things to make it fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can, even as you're telling parts of the story, have everyone be in Egypt and then have everyone travel through and be in the desert. There's so many ways to do it to enhance the atmosphere and make it a little special. Great.
Any other questions or suggestions from people? Something that they tried last year that really worked? We've heard from Claire a few times, but how about somebody else who may have had?
Money works best for gifts. I found that out as I got older.
Even with children.
Just take them all to Israel.
One time I tried it. A check is terrific in the email.
Well, let me tell you something. For children, children are, I don't know, 8 years and younger, a $2 bill. They never see them anymore, but a $2 bill is like they found something totally new. That's right.
Amy, you have a question or a?
No, I was just going to share what we did last year.
Please.
We did the Cohen Susa virtual Zoom Seder. We made our own Haggadah using Haggadot.com.
Mm-hmm.
We had people make pictures if they wanted to. So a friend of ours drew the wine glass. put in our own borders and things. We found little jokes. We made it sort of relevant. Sent it out as a PDF in advance so everybody would have their own copy. Actually, it was Barbara who made that wonderful, she hid the matzah in a beautiful picture that the
Right, Barb Sigmund, yeah.
we included that so everybody had it. And I'm afraid, you know, Claire, I'm nowhere near as kind or generous or thoughtful as you are. I don't remember what game we played, but I simply made a PDF of a t-shirt that said I found the Afikoman, and all I got was this t-shirt. So it wasn't even a real t-shirt, it was just a, you know, image of a t-shirt. So
That's awesome.
That wouldn't go over with my grandchildren, no way.
So we sang a lot of our traditional songs.
Grandfather opening his wallet.
We did find new songs this year too. It's always fun to get new songs. So we've added a bunch of those, and we're gonna do a virtual one again on the second night because we miss the people and we miss being together, and you know, tradition. We'll get there. It's I can't believe that we're doing this again.
Right. Right.
So it's time, got to make it as palatable as possible for myself, because this is just, you know.
Well, you know, the Jews traveled in the desert supposedly for 40 years. And, you know, they're complaining about onions and all the things they missed in Egypt. You know, right now we're sort of wandering a little bit in a desert. And, you know, hopefully we will be out of this by next year.
That's one of my favorite jokes about two Jews. They've got their packs and they're walking. And they're going, really? We had to leave so fast overnight? There wasn't any time to make bread? This is crazy. He says, people are going to be talking about this for years. So yeah, we put things like that in too in our Haggadah. So
right. And I think that sentiment applies here too, because we'll be talking, I mean, you know, this is certainly a unique moment in history, hopefully. Hopefully it will be unique to these couple of years, and it will be you know, some of the future generations will be telling these stories yet to come.
You can tell the story of your plague.
our plague, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Now, thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you. Sinus. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Nice to see you all. Feel free to be in
you.
touch.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Happy
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you
Take
so
care,
much.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Be well.
All right.
All right. I'm gonna stop the recording now. All right.